Attorney Voss needs to be established fast and cleanly, not through a biography dump, but through function. Who is she in this room right now? The strongest approach is to introduce her mid-motion, already at the podium, already arranging notes, already in the posture of someone who has done this 100 times but still treats today like it matters. A single line of narration or on-screen text can carry her name and role. Attorney Alina Voss, third-year associate, first solo argument in front of this judge. While the visual carries the rest. Steady hands, a glance at the clock, a breath before she speaks. The case itself should be compressed into the smallest possible unit of stakes. Avoid explaining the legal mechanics in detail at this stage. Save that for when it's dramatically useful. What the audience needs here is the human stakes underneath the legal ones. A small business about to lose its lease. A wrongful termination that could set a precedent for hundreds of other workers. A custody dispute where a delay ruling could mean months apart. Whatever the actual case is, it should be stated in a single clean sentence, ideally delivered by Voss herself as part of her opening framing, so it doesn't feel like exposition, it feels like advocacy. The "why does this hearing matter" question should be answered on two levels simultaneously, the stakes for the client and the stakes for Voss. This is what makes the sequence work later. We're not just watching a case, we're watching a young lawyer's credibility on the line. A visual cue works well here. Maybe her supervising partner is in the gallery, arms crossed, present but not intervening. That single detail tells the audience this is a test, without a line of dialogue needed to say so. Keep the courtroom itself sparse in this beat. A few establishing shots, the seal on the wall, the gallery filling in, the bailiff calling the case are enough. Don't linger. The rule for this whole section is one sentence per fact. Who she is, what the case is, what's riding on it. Anything more dilutes the momentum you need heading into the judge's entrance. End the beat on the bailiff's cue. Court is now in session, the Honorable Judge Harmon presiding, which hands off cleanly into beat 2. The transition should feel like a held breath, the calm before the audience meets the antagonist of the scene. This beat exists to plant a single seed. Judge Harmon is not a neutral obstacle, he's a live threat with an ego. The audience needs to clock this quickly, ideally within his first few seconds on screen, because everything that follows depends on us already disliking him a little before he's done anything overtly wrong. The tool for this is behavior, not dialogue. A judge who visibly does not want to be here reads far more effectively than one who announces his contempt out loud. Small physical choices carry the weight. He doesn't look up from his docket when he greets counsel. He mispronounces or half-swallows Voss's name, then doesn't bother to correct it. He checks his watch or glances toward the clock on the back wall, signaling he's already thinking about lunch or the next case on his calendar. If there's room for one line of dialogue, something dry and dismissive works better than something cruel. Cruelty this early tips the scene into melodrama before it's earned. A better register is bored condescension. Let's keep this brief, counsel, I have a full calendar, delivered without even really looking at her. The small early dig or eye roll the outline calls for should be aimed specifically at her, not at the case in general. This personalizes the conflict. Maybe he references her firm or her relative inexperience with a faint smile that reads as amusement rather than aggression. The key restraint here. He should not yet be cartoonish. He's not sneering or mocking loudly, he's worse in a way because he's casually unbothered. He doesn't see her as a threat, which is exactly what makes his eventual comeuppance land. Cutaways matter here too. A reaction shot from opposing counsel, maybe a small, knowing smirk, as if to say, yeah, this is how he treats everyone, establishes that this is a pattern, not a one-off. It also quietly raises the stakes. This isn't just one bad judge having one bad day, this is an environment Voss has to survive and outmaneuver. By the end of this beat, the audience should have an unspoken but clear read. This judge thinks he already knows how this hearing goes, and he's not really listening. That complacency is the mechanism that makes the grin moment in the next beat land. His condescension is what invites the interruption, and it's what will make the eventual reversal so satisfying. Don't resolve any tension here. This beat is pure setup. Plant the attitude, then get out before it becomes repetitive. This is where Voss speaks for the first time with real weight behind her, and where Harmon's attitude turns from passive to active. Her opening argument doesn't need to be long. In fact, it should be tight and confident, structured so that its clarity is itself a contrast to the judge's dismissiveness. Give her a strong opening line, something that states the legal question cleanly and with conviction, signaling she knows exactly what she's doing even if the room doesn't fully register it yet. The interruption is the engine of this beat. Harmon should cut in not because there's a real procedural issue, but because he's asserting dominance. The interruption is a display, not a correction. It could be him finishing her sentence incorrectly, mischaracterizing her point so he can dismiss it faster, or simply cutting across her with something like, "I think I know where this is going," before she's gotten to the substance. The condescension should feel practiced, like something he does often and has never been made to regret. This is the grin moment reference from the original title concept, so it deserves a beat of visual emphasis. A slow push-in on his face as he delivers the line, maybe the faintest smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. This is the moment the thumbnail or hook probably teased, so it needs to land with enough clarity that a viewer who came in on that hook feels like they've arrived somewhere real, even though the story is far from over. It shouldn't feel like a throwaway aside, give it space, a half-second longer than feels natural, so it registers. Voss's reaction in this beat should be restrained. This is not the moment for her comeback that's being saved for beat 6, so here she needs to simply absorb the interruption without folding. A small, controlled pause. Maybe she doesn't even look rattled, just quietly recalibrating. If she says anything at all, it should be procedural and calm. "If I may finish, Your Honor," delivered evenly, not defensively. That restraint is what sells her competence. Close the beat with the judge waving her on, almost bored, already assuming he's won this micro-exchange. This sets up beats 4 and 5 perfectly. He thinks the confrontation is over and decided, when really it's only just begun. The audience should leave this beat unsettled on Voss's behalf, wanting to see her get her footing back, which primes them for the tension escalation that follows. If beat 3 was the first jab, this beat is where Harmon commits to the fight without realizing it's a fight he can lose. His behavior needs to escalate in a way that feels specific rather than generic, vague. He keeps being rude, doesn't build tension the way a targeted attack does. The strongest version of this beat has him go after something concrete, a precedent she cited, her experience level, or the credibility of her argument's foundation. Precision here makes the eventual reversal more satisfying, because the audience can track exactly what gets dismantled later. If he mocks a precedent, let him do it with false confidence, misstating it slightly, or waving it off as irrelevant with a tone that suggests he hasn't actually read it closely. This is a subtle but important detail. His overconfidence should be built on a shortcut, not genuine command of the material. Audiences pick up on this instinctively even before it's confirmed, which builds anticipatory tension. They're already waiting for the moment his shortcut gets exposed. If instead he goes after her experience, "This must be your first time arguing something like this," or similar, it should land as a personal jab dressed as professional observation, sharp enough to visibly cost her something but not so cruel that it curdles the tone of the piece. The gallery's reaction is doing a lot of work in this beat. A wince from a colleague, opposing counsel enjoying it a little too openly, the supervising partner's jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. These reactions tell the audience how bad this actually is without needing dialogue to spell it out. The packing here should tighten, shorter shots, quicker cuts between Harmon's escalating dismissiveness and the room's mounting discomfort. Sound design or music, if this is being cut for video, can underline this. Pull back the score, let silence and small room noise carry weight, so his words land harder. The audience should start to feel physically uncomfortable, almost protective of Voss, even as she hasn't shown any external cracks yet. Critically, this beat should end right before Voss responds, cut away, hold on a reaction shot, or hard cut to black for a beat if the format allows it. The turn belongs to beat 5, and this section needs to end on the high point of Harmon's overreach, at the exact moment the audience is most desperate for the counterpunch. That desperation is the emotional fuel for everything that follows. This is the hinge of the entire sequence, and it works almost entirely through restraint rather than escalation. After several beats of Harmon's mounting condescension, the audience expects Voss to either crumble or explode, and the most satisfying choice is neither. She does something quieter and more disarming. She doesn't react to the insult at all. Instead of defending herself, she simply continues, as though the jab never landed, which paradoxically makes it land on him instead. The physical performance here matters more than any line of dialogue. A slow exhale, a small, private half-smile, not smug, but the look of someone who's just been handed exactly the opening she needed. Maybe she takes a beat to shuffle a single page of notes, unhurried, in direct visual contrast to the tension in the room. This is a masterclass in showing composure as power. While Harmon's aggression has been loud, her calm should read as louder. If there's a moment of dialogue in this beat, it should be transitional rather than confrontational, something that signals a pivot without giving away the payoff. A line like "Actually, Your Honor," that's precisely the point, works well because it reframes his attack as an unintentional setup for her argument, without revealing what that argument is yet. This creates a cliffhanger within the scene. The audience knows something is coming, but not what. Camera and editing choices should slow down here rather than speed up. This beat should feel like the room itself is holding its breath. A slow push-in on Voss, a cut to Harmon's face starting to shift from smug to slightly uncertain, the first crack, even if he doesn't consciously register it yet, and maybe a beat of near silence before she continues. This tonal shift, from the frantic energy of beat 4 to the controlled stillness of beat 5, is what makes the turn feel earned rather than abrupt. It's worth resisting the temptation to have her say too much here. The instinct might be to let her start unloading the argument immediately, but the more effective structure holds the actual payoff line back for beat 6. This beat should end on the audience leaning forward, sensing the shift in power, but not yet seeing it confirmed, the calm before the line that the entire video has been building toward. This is the moment the entire video has been engineered around, so it needs to be treated with the same care as a punchline in comedy. Timing matters as much as content. The line teased at 0:08 finally gets delivered in full, and everything before this beat exists to maximize its impact. The stakes from beat 1, the judge's overconfidence from beat 2, the escalating condescension from beats 3 and 4, and the quiet composure of beat 5 all converge here. Structurally, the line should do at least two things simultaneously: dismantle whatever specific claim Harmon made, the precedent, the experience jab, whatever was chosen in beat 4, and reframe the power dynamic of the room in a single stroke. The best version of this kind of line doesn't rely on volume or aggression. It works because it's precise, and because it exposes that Harmon's confidence was built on a shortcut the audience already suspected. If he mocked a precedent, the line should show, cleanly and specifically, that he misunderstood or misapplied it. If he mocked her experience, the line should reframe that inexperience as irrelevant to the actual legal question, or better, turn it into evidence of exactly why she prepared more carefully than he did. Delivery is everything. Voss should not raise her voice. If anything, she should get quieter and more precise as the line lands, which forces the room and the audience to lean in. This is the opposite of the loud, aggressive climax you might expect from a lesser version of this format, and that contrast is what will make it feel authentic rather than performative. After the line lands, the instruction to hold a beat of silence before reacting shots is doing serious work and shouldn't be rushed in the edit. Let it sit. In a video format, this might be a full second or two of held shot on Harmon's face, unmoving before cutting away, an eternity in short-form packing, and exactly what makes it feel weighty rather than throwaway. Resist the urge to immediately cut to triumphant reaction shots. The silence itself is the punctuation mark, and undercutting it with a quick cut robs the line of its full effect. This beat should be the shortest in terms of dialogue, but the most important in terms of preparation. Everything in the edit, sound design, and performance should be oriented around making these few seconds worth the 6.5 minutes that preceded them. This section is where the emotional payoff actually gets sold to the audience, and it's worth treating it as its own mini-sequence rather than an afterthought tacked onto beat 6. The core insight here is correct and important. The line itself is only half the effect. The other half is watching the room absorb it. Viewers often remember the reactions more vividly than the line, because reactions are what confirm the line landed the way we hoped it would. Structure this as a quick sequence of 3 to 4 short cuts, each telling a slightly different story. Start with the gallery, a ripple of reaction, maybe someone stifling a laugh, someone else exchanging a wide-eyed glance with their neighbor. This tells the audience the room registers this as a genuine, notable moment, not just a line that only the audience appreciates. Keep these shots brief. Lingering too long on any one bystander dilutes the momentum. Next, cut to opposing counsel. Their reaction should track differently from the gallery's, less delighted, more alarmed, because they understand the legal and strategic implications better than a general spectator would. A tightening jaw, a glance down at their own notes as if reassessing their entire strategy, or a whispered aside to a colleague all work well here. This shot does double duty. It sells the stakes of the line for people who understand the case, and it subtly previews that this moment might shift more than just the immediate exchange. The most important shot in this beat, though, is Harmon's face changing, and it deserves to be treated almost like its own beat within a beat. Rather than a single reaction, consider a two-stage micro-sequence. First, a flicker of genuine surprise or recalibration, quickly suppressed, followed by the beginning of whatever choice he's about to make in beat 8, concede, backpedal, or dig in. This shouldn't fully resolve yet. It's a preview, not the answer, but it should visibly mark the shift from beat 2's dismissiveness to something closer to uncertainty. Sound design can help enormously here. A slight swell in ambient courtroom noise, murmurs, maybe a single gavel tap to restore order. All reinforce that this was a real disruption to the room's equilibrium. By the end of this beat, the audience should feel the full weight of the reversal even before Harmon says a single word in response, which is exactly what makes beat 8's dialogue land with maximum efficiency. The outline is right to insist on a clean choice here rather than a blurred one, because ambiguity at this stage would undercut everything the previous 7 beats built. Whichever path is chosen, concede, backpedal and lose ground, or double down and lose more ground. The key craft decision is making sure the choice feels consistent with the version of Harmon established in beat 2, so the ending feels earned rather than arbitrary. A full concession is the cleanest, most satisfying option for shorter-form content, because it delivers unambiguous closure within a tight runtime. If chosen, it shouldn't be groveling. Harmon should retain some dignity even in defeat, perhaps acknowledging the point with a terse, clipped line like "noted," "counsel," or a small procedural correction that implicitly concedes the substance without an emotional confession. This keeps him human rather than cartoonish, which paradoxically makes Voss's victory feel more impressive, since she didn't just beat a strawman. The backpedal option is dramatically richer if there's room to let it breathe. Harmon tries to save face by reframing his original position as something more modest than it was. "That's not what I meant," or a hasty pivot to a procedural technicality, while the room and the audience both clearly see through it. This option works particularly well if beat 7's reaction shots, especially opposing counsels, set up an audience that's primed to notice the inconsistency. It also opens a nice thread for a part 2 tease later, since a judge trying to save face rather than fully conceding often has more room for a return conflict. The double-down option is the highest-risk, highest-reward choice. If Harmon digs in further, it needs an added twist to still register as a loss for him. Perhaps he makes an appeal to authority that visibly falls flat, or a colleague bailiff court reporter's reaction signals that even the room isn't buying it anymore. This version demands the strongest reaction shots in beat 7 to work, since without external validation that he's losing, a double down can just read as him continuing to win. Whichever choice is made, keep the beat brief and decisive. A single clear line or action from Harmon, not a monologue. The goal is a clean pivot point into resolution, not a second argument. End on the visual or verbal signal of exactly how much ground he's lost, so beat 9 can move immediately into consequence rather than having to first clarify what happened.